The Biden border crisis is getting worse and worse every day. We are on pace for over 2 million people to cross illegally into this country. We have the highest level of illegal immigration in over 20 years. Last year, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. How did we go from incredible success to incredible failure? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris screwed this up. It is their fault. 3 decisions. In the opening week of this administration, Joe Biden halted construction of the border wall. He reinstated the failed policy of catch and release, and most disastrously, he pulled out of the incredibly successful Remain in Mexico international agreement that had resulted in the lowest level of illegal immigration in 45 years. No state in the union is paying a bigger price for the Biden border crisis than our home state of Texas. In Texas, we are seeing the influx of humanity, and what Biden and Harris are counting on is the news media not covering it. They're counting on ABC and CBS and NBC and CNN and MSNBC not showing the Biden cages. A couple of months ago, I brought 19 senators down to the border. We saw the Biden cages, little boys and little girls crammed in at over 1,700% of their capacity. COVID positivity rates of 10%. What Biden and Harris are counting on is the media not covering the little boys and little girls who are being physically assaulted, who are being sexually assaulted by human traffickers in record numbers. You know, the leading paper in Washington has as a slogan, "Democracy dies in darkness." Joe and Kamala want darkness on the disaster that they have created. And not only that, they're proposing to make it worse. Joe Biden is now talking about ending Title 42. Title 42 is the tool that has allowed us to prevent people with COVID from being released into this country. We're in a pandemic. Joe Biden likes to talk about what a priority he puts on the pandemic. Understand this. If the Biden administration ends Title 42, they will be releasing illegal immigrants in your community who are COVID positive. We're seeing COVID positivity rates rising in South Texas. We're seeing COVID positivity rising in Laredo. We're seeing COVID positivity rising in San Antonio. Just yesterday, I spoke with the mayor of Uvalde, Texas, who said as a result of the illegal immigrants being released in Uvalde, they're seeing COVID positivity spiking up. And Biden wants to release even more COVID-positive illegal immigrants. This is lunacy. This week I introduced legislation, the SHIELD Act, with a number of senators up here, to codify Title 42 and to stop Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from releasing illegal immigrants in our communities who are positive for COVID. If you don't want to see this pandemic come back with the Delta variant, or most of these illegal immigrants coming in haven't been vaccinated. They're being put in cages with other people who are COVID positive. They're spreading COVID and then releasing COVID in our communities. This is lunacy. It is lawless. And the only reason Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are doing it is because they are captive to the extreme radical left of their party. Everyone else who believes in common sense ought to say enough is enough. And let's not make the pandemic worse by making this crisis at the border even worse than it already is.
Biden administration has been in place 175 days. In that 175 days, we've had 4 of the months be the highest number of illegal crossings in 20 years, only to be beaten by the next month, the next month, the next month. The other records are the things that people aren't talking about right now. We have 6,000 ICE agents in the interior of the country. Last month, they did 3,000 deportations. So not only is the administration stopped enforcing what's happening on the southern border, they've stopped enforcing the interior of the country. In the piece that we started talking about 175 days ago, and that was when the Biden administration just stopped construction on the southwest border wall. Today, it's the 14th of July. Today, we spent, as federal taxpayers, $3 million paying contractors not to install the wall. We also paid several $1 million to contractors to watch the steel that's laying on the ground to make sure no one takes it. So far this year, in the 175 days that the Biden administration has put a pause on construction of the wall, we as taxpayers have spent over $1 billion not building the wall. Not building it. That's not $1 billion we get back. That's money that we paid out to literally pay people to watch the steel in the ground and to pay contractors to not actually fulfill their contract. This affects all sorts of businesses along that border as well. I'll give you one example. There's an aggregate and concrete company. It's a small family business. They lost $1.5 million because now over 100 days ago, they were told to pause for 60 days, but to stand by. Stand by. Well, in that standing by, they have to keep their personnel. They have to continue to rent their equipment. They continue to have access to the aggregate. But now 175 days in, they've lost $1.4 million as a company. They're not going to be able to get back and have no idea if they're going to finish this contract or not. This affects employment along the border. This affects the federal taxpayer losing $1 billion. This affects the security of the nation. And for whatever reason, 175 days into the Biden administration, they don't seem to have a plan or care. And that's a challenge for all of us. Because if Title 42 goes away, the number one issue that the Border Patrol see is we're going to have an astronomical increase of people coming at the border, and this time they won't be turned back. They'll be released into the countries in epic numbers. We should pay attention to this, and we're asking the Biden administration to just enforce the law.
Well, good afternoon. President Biden is about to take a very bad situation at the border, and he's going to make it worse. He seems to be surrendering to the most radical voices in his party in terms of immigration. He's planning to open the southern border even wider than it is open right now. Because of coronavirus, the Center for Disease Control used an order that they could for public health called Title 42 to expel certain individuals who are trying to come into the country illegally. We have on good authority that the White House is talking about eliminating this Title 42 and what we've been doing for the last year to keep coronavirus out of the country. And this is a time when there are increased variants of coronavirus, variants of which the most recent one is one that those of us who've been vaccinated may not have the kind of protection that we all believed that we had. So today we're sending a letter to the president pointing out that every president has a responsibility to protect the safety and the security of the American people. 26 Republicans have signed on to the letter, including Leader McConnell. We're addressing in the letter the concerns we have and the American people have about public health and safety, about the crisis at the border from the standpoint of national security, as well as from the standpoint of the humanitarian crisis. I'm just going to read one paragraph from this letter signed by 26 of us to the President of the United States. Ending this order will have a dire impact on the crisis already engulfing our southwestern border. We urge you in the strongest possible terms not to take this action. Immigration facilities are overwhelmed. Revoking the authority of officials to rapidly expel illegal migrants under Title 42 without a clear plan in place to handle the stress this population will place on the system and on border communities will further exacerbate the crisis at the southwestern border. Senator Capito.